So hi, Ash Ali. Wonderful to have you on this call.
Hi.
We got a bit of a history between us where we've been sharing all sorts over the past months in particular. But you are co-founder of UHubs, which is a lifelong learning platform that's focused on entrepreneurs. But you're also the co-author of a new book called The Unfair Advantage. It'd be good to hear a little bit about that, but can you fill out a little bit more detail on who you are and where you're at, and maybe a little bit about, I'm an author or an entrepreneur yourself, but maybe a little bit of an idea of your focus of what's coming up for you in this year, 2020, and maybe even a little bit beyond, because that would be a great thing to discuss in the light of the profile that we're going to unpack on this session.
Great. Thank you very much, Pad. And it's been a pleasure coming on to speak about my profile. So my name is Ash Ali, and I've been an internet entrepreneur since I was the age of 19 now. So 20 years in, I've done a huge amount of different things. I was the first marketing director of a company called Just Eat, which IPO'd in 2014. And then I became an angel investor and advised multiple companies around the world on startups and growth. I specialize in growth. And my new company, UHubs, is an upskilling platform to help entrepreneurs learn the latest 21st century skills to start their own companies or develop that startup agile thinking in their companies themselves. The new book, The Unfair Advantage, was as a result of 3.5 years of writing and thinking of the concept. It came about because we were struggling with labeling that type of person who had a unique way of accelerating their startup success, or a team that were accelerating their startup success. And it was like, what do you label this? And we were like, well, actually, they had an unfair advantage. And the book is written for people who are the misfits, the underdogs, the underestimated, the people like me who came from a different background, who want to start companies and believe in themselves and develop a skill where they can double down on their strengths. And The Unfair Advantage is out on the 23rd of January. You can pre-order it now from Amazon and all major bookstores and get the Audible version. And it's been a really interesting and wonderful ride. And what do I want to get in 2020? So UHubs is now going through a stage of growth. We're hiring people. So I'm going to go back into a more of a leadership role where I'll be working with lots of different people in an environment, in a fast growth environment and a startup stage. So how do I manage that and develop that, especially now with a new generation of people coming into the world of work and new tools available? How do we use those, for example, social media and influence? And also how I manage my own well-being and my own energy as I go through this process, because it's very easy to get burned out when you're doing a startup or any type of adventure like this.
Yeah.
So managing your energy and understanding who you are as a better person is really important. And the whole idea of your application and what we're going to do today, and the whole idea of the book, the Unfair Advantage book, is about self-awareness. And I'm really big on building my own self-awareness. And this is a great exercise and great way to do that.
Excellent. Yeah, so that's fabulous. I've heard you talking a couple of times, but the book looks like it's going to be quite amazing. You, the talk, were unpacking what you call the Miles framework. Do you want to just give a tiny introduction to what that's about? Because that was a great way of encapsulating some of those absolute key, vital sort of pillars that I think every entrepreneur needs to get their heads around.
Sure. So we believe an unfair advantage is something which is very difficult to copy. It gives an unfair advantage, something that gives you speed or acceleration. It's something that will get you faster to the point at which you're at. And some people think unfair is an unethical way of thinking about it, but it's actually, we see it as a very positive way to look at it. The unfair advantage meaning unique to you and unique to your personality, unique to your circumstances. And because of that, we've created this framework called the MILES framework. And MILES is an acronym for the different words that go along. So M stands for money. So we think that having money and having no money is a double-edged sword, and how that can accelerate you. So having money helps you get off the ground when you're initially starting, but having no money can also make you very creative. And so we talk about this in the MILES framework. Intelligence and insight, which is the I. So we talk about how being book smart is important, but also being street smart and having emotional intelligence is important. And then we talk about insight, having an insight into your industry or a sector, or having domain expertise becomes more important when you're starting a company. So do you have that, and at what area do you have it in? And if you don't have that, how do you buy in? How do you co-found a team that has that? And so that's the I part of it. And then the L part is location and luck. I was originally born I'm a second generation immigrant, originally born in Birmingham. And the fact that my parents moved to the UK and then I moved from Birmingham to London made a massive difference to my success, because I was in the place where companies were starting. So my location is important, but then also luck, lucky to be a British citizen, lucky to be able to travel anywhere in the world, lucky to have the privileges to be able to start a company in 15 minutes, for example. And so there's lots of luck that comes your way as well, and being lucky to be part of different companies like Just Eat, for example. And then the E part of the framework is education and expertise. The education side is how education is important, but self-education is even more important, hence the lifelong learning platform. And having a grade or a number should not define you as an entrepreneur. Your IQ score does not define you. And the whole concept of neuroplasticity in your brain, the fact that you can actually become smarter if you believe you're smarter and read more and do more. And expertise, building expertise is really important. One of the things I did in my career was build my expertise in digital marketing, for example, and adding value to the world. So it's not just book knowledge, but it's actually expertise that can be applicable. And how can that be applicable in skills? And skills are really important now, not just knowledge per se, because you can go to Google and get anything you want nowadays. And then we finish off with S, which is status. And status is your connections, your network, your accent, the school you went to, the companies that you worked with. All these things matter. And sadly, they do matter. And knowing how to understand that is really important. And knowing to understand that you're fitting in a world which is an unlevel playing field makes it really interesting to understand your miles. And the most important part of status is the fact that what story you tell yourself in your own brain of who you are, because that's what it's truly, how you truly can become authentic rather than what you think it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brilliant framework. It highlights some of those absolute key points that we need to get our heads around. So that's really good to hear. Now, I have pinged over to you. Now, I know you're on a mobile now. I don't know if you're able to see what's up, but what I'm going to do whilst you do that, I'll keep the screen on me, and I'm just going to talk a little bit, because whilst you look at that and have that maybe as a reference, you'll be able to see the full profile for all of the different archetypes that are a result of you entering in the detail on the power profile. Now, I know you did this a little while ago, and you had a slightly different result. Do you remember the result that you had the last time you did the power profile?
I do. And funnily enough, though, it's still one of the strong profiles on here as well. It's just I got beaten out by something else this time around. So I was a jester and a mystic last time. So
right, there you go. So interesting that let's discuss this, because this could indicate a change that's taken place over the sort of, what was it, been 6 months or something? It's been an interesting, entrepreneurship demands different things from you at different times, and the environment does draw out from you all the things that the moment demands. And as a leader, you have to go to that. You have to be flexible enough to go to the space that needs your attention. You can't just say, oh, it's a team thing, I can't do teams. No, somebody else needs to do it, or you neglect it. And you can't say, oh, it's a finance thing, I can't go near finance, I'm just not that sort of person. You have to have flexibility. It doesn't mean that we're all great with all of them, but you need the bravery and the courage just to face those things and tackle them. So it may be that some of the things more recently have caused one of these characters to come up. So the highest one that you have right now is the lover character. So the lover is clearly that one who is thinking most about people. People is the highest sort of priority to the lover. It's not just the Romeos and Juliets of the world. It's the person who cares about people, who looks out for people, and their concerns are your concerns. And there's a sense in which there's got to be a sense of empathy there. You can empathize with their positions. You can speak to them where they're at instead of just barking at them. You sort of you engage with them, and connection is a key driver for the lover. Interesting then that the next two are really quite close. You do have the mystic in there next, but the jester is just a little bit below. So you've got these two characters sort of tussling for second position, which means that at the moment, the innovator is the stronger of the two drivers with you, but only just a little bit. immediately following the innovator is the jester who's saying, guys, we've got to make sure this is fun and we can't box ourselves in and we don't have to follow the rules here.
Yep.
There are certain principles that are important, but actually it's really important for you to keep tearing things apart as it is building things right now, and being willing to do something radical, different, look out for the unique, the strange, the variety is an important part. So there's that drive going on. But just ahead of that, it's being trumped by the desire to innovate. So some of these jesters just rip things up and don't care about the innovation. They just rip things up and run counter just for the kicks of doing something against the trend. Whereas you're bringing it in a bit more strategically, in that actually, no, that's an important part of our journey. And we are innovating, we're connecting with people, we're innovating, but then it's let's keep this fun, but it's not pushing the other guys out. But all of the other characters, I will immediately say as I look at this, whilst the lover's strong, the mystic is strong as well. You've got a lot of right brain stuff going on there, which means that you're driven primarily by creativity first. And then okay, now we do need some order, we do need some structure, and that's where the left brain guys come in. And all of those guys are pretty strong as well, and they're only just a little step down. So you kind of got the gold medal positions for lover, mystic, jester, the right brain, creative types, the lateral thing. But it's not far below that. Immediately, once you've got those needs satisfied there, you're very quickly going to swing into sovereign, which is, okay, guys, establish this, structure it, build a framework, get the team together, create an order to this kingdom that we've envisioned as the lover, to the teams that we've talked about as the lover type, the mystic with the vision side of things, the jester keeping it fun. But now sovereign steps in and goes, right, just under the jester, comes in, brings order about. The sage comes very shortly after that. Okay, guys, let's look at the numbers. Let's get real about the facts and the situation. And then the warrior is like, now let's get it done. And that's the order with which I'm imagining you go into a new project, you face a new opportunity, you meet up with a new bunch of people or a potential joint venture. These are actually, in that order, the series of sort of thoughts as they unfold on an average day. Things will vary a little bit if you understand stuff beforehand, that, oh, there's a financial issue with this company as you're dealing with. Obviously, that's going to be front of mind. But as a general tool, if all things being equal, this would be your way of approaching a situation and the kind of the way that you do life. Does that resonate? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually, the right brain versus the left brain and the creative side versus the logical side. One of the questions I have there for you, Pat, is the warrior side, because I do see myself as someone who does take a lot of action on stuff and does a lot of things. So how does that relate? Because it seems to be my lower scores on it's like 5.5 or whatever it is, but it's, how does that relate to what I am in real life? Because I'm a doer, I do a lot of stuff and I get stuff done.
Yeah, so it's interesting that the warrior is kind of, you could read this graph and say it's last of the pack. Does that mean I just don't get round to it? But the other guys can sometimes be satisfied really quite quickly, but they are the first thought that you're having at the moment. These are the first thoughts that you would have in mind. So until the lover is saying, are we together, guys? Are we united on this? You're not going to step into action. But as soon as you get the sense that you are, well, then that warrior can come pretty high. As you say, it's 5.5. The two things about this profile that I will immediately sort of add in now is, first of all, they're all mature characters. Over 5 for all of them means that they're really quite mature. The fact that none of them are kind of hitting the 10 is actually, to me, a pretty good sign, because when I see anybody hitting a 10 on something, it's almost as if they feel like in that area nobody can teach them anything. And you're not there. You're strong, your lover's really strong with stuff there. It's the closest, coming up to a 9, but you're not like, oh no, I've got this thing nailed, which is a good place to be. There's a sense of humility there. Anybody who comes in with a 10 on a sovereign, I'm I'm scared already. I
All
almost
right.
don't want that conversation.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I rule the universe, so that's that. Wow. So what I want to do then is to look at what we can do in terms of understanding this profile compared to some others, that it's a leadership profile you've got.
Right.
The fact that all of these characters are between 5.5 and sort of 8.5 or 9, there's only about a 3 step between even the highest and the lowest. And because they're all within this fairly narrow band, because some people's profiles, you'd be amazed, it's people who are like 1 and 2 on Sovereign and 9 or 10 on Mystic. And there's this real disparity between the two, which means they just can't go there with the Sovereign. Whereas with the warrior, you can definitely go there above a 5. You've got that strength. But I would suggest that it's almost certainly subservient to making sure that you tick the boxes. Once you know the team are united, once you know that you're heading in an innovative direction, once you get the feeling that this is going to be fun, once the sage has said the numbers back this up, at least to a point. And then once you got a sense that, yeah, we're moving in the right direction, we got this vision, blah, 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 then the warrior says, let's do it. And that is a strong voice in there at 5.5. It's not a weak voice, but it does come in after those other little check boxes in your mind and your sort of sense of hidden values that comes out. Yeah. Does that seem to fit?
That seems like an interesting way of looking at it. The hidden values versus the fact that I still want to do stuff. That's just true, actually.
Yeah, good. So it's not that there's any deficiency here. I mean, it's always an interesting thing to say, what would happen if in your next meeting the warrior was pushed up? You might actually find yourself, it may work, it may create something and move something forward faster, but actually I think you'll probably feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's like, no, I do want to check the figures before I take that step, or I do want to make sure the team are united before that step's taken, etc. So that's the sort of thing that I'd look at. It's always interesting to say, well, what would happen if this was pulled down? What would happen if this was moved up? And there will be some situations where you need, actually, no, the numbers are just not together. So we're going to spend some more sage time making sure they are there, and we'll push that sage up forward. But I still think in terms of your leadership style, it's creativity is a great and a strong driver, but the fact that all of these characters are within that sort of narrow, no further than 3 points apart, even from your highest to your lowest, indicate that you do have the flexibility to go to the type or the approach that's necessary to get the job done. You're not going to be going, oh no, I'm just not capable of doing that warrior thing, or I'm not capable of doing that team lover thing. It just doesn't work for me. No, you're able to do that. And so I would expect from one to another, one quarter to another, maybe every 6 months or something, these may shuffle just a little bit here and there. But overall, it gives a real sense that you're developed enough, you've had enough hard kicks in life and enough challenges in life to learn to step up with all of these characters. Yeah, you don't get a profile like that without having gone through some pretty tough times across the board. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Challenges, restrictions of rules, challenges that you want to break out of, squashed innovation where you see, actually, if I don't dream for something bigger here, I'm just going to get stuck. Sage, if I don't look at the numbers, we're going to hit a wall that we should have seen coming. But with the warrior, if I don't take action, well, then how's anything going to get started? With the sovereign, it's like, if I don't run this thing, no one's going to, or I'm going to be subservient to somebody else's vision and dreams. Why would I want that? So those are the sorts of things that I think through the course of your life you've stepped up into each of those, and you're able to. You've strengthened those muscles, and that's developed. What is immediately a leadership profile there. You can bring it. You can bring it.
I got it. Cool. Okay. And what does it mean by mystic? Because mystic itself is quite confusing. Like, well, how does that apply? What does mystic mean in the context of business and startup?
So in terms of business, first thing is innovation. The mystic has two perspectives. They're able to transform because they're able to transcend. So Steve Jobs was mystic sovereign. He had the authority over his company and all his people and all the research guys, but the mystic was constantly causing him to innovate. And so it was innovation transcending what was expected from computers, devices, interactions, ways of people with technology. He transcended the norms. And then once he did that, he was then able to come back down to earth and see transformation come through. So that was from a business point of view, that's true. Coaches have got to have a reasonable strength of the mystic, because they have to be able to go above and beyond where the person's at now, see something for them better, and or coach that out of them, so that it's brought as a vision. Mystics are very good with that vision, but then they need to work until they see that transformation take place. A lot of coaches call themselves transformational coaches. Well, if they don't bring about a transformation, then they're pretty useless. So but in business, it's that ability to look above and beyond. There's also an aspect of which there is a sort of faith here. If I dream it, if I dream it, I can get myself there. If you don't have that vision, then it's going to be a challenge. The sovereign also has vision, but they're a lot more pragmatic about it. And so you've got both strongly in there. Steve Jobs had that strongly in there. They said he lived in his own reality, his distortion field. What do they call it? The reality distortion zone that he got himself. That's when he's in the mystic. But then he knew that he had a team and he had technical guys who could tackle stuff. So he swung over to sovereign to say, right, guys, now let's make it happen. Many of them said, well, yeah, but it's unrealistic. That mystic side of you created some unrealistic dreams. But he's like, no, guys, make it happen. And they did. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Excellent. All good. So where next for you? Do you see, we've just got a few minutes left. What do you see looking at this profile and where you're heading? Do you feel like this profile is actually, I'm quite happy with that and I'm just going to keep moving forward with that? Or is there any part of this profile you say, I can see what's on my plate or what's coming up this year, and I think that I actually could do with more of this, or I imagine that this is going to step up a bit more than the others compared to where they currently are?
Yeah, no, it's actually really fascinating to see this, because currently I'm in a stage with my company right now where I'm innovating and we're mission driven, and it's about getting the right people on the bus basically, and looking for the right people and being a team environment, because we are a team based business, and then also having a fun journey along the way, and in making it practical and fun and exciting for the people to come and work with us. And a lot of people have said that they enjoy the learning, they enjoy the fact that we're going fast paced, and there's a beautiful chaos in certain things that we'll do as well. And that's something that we're now improving. So now we've just actually made our first hire to focus on the programs that we're developing right now, to make them more organized and make them in structure, and make sure that there's a much more a seamless kind of process and an onboarding process, and that person has come in with that background, so it's like everything needs to be organized and checklists and everything else, whereas we're just naturally going, yes, we'll do this, and we've got more of a natural flow. So we're seeing this in our organization, but I naturally know I'm more towards that than I am the other, and more in a coaching role. And so this gives me an idea that actually we are filling the right gaps in the company, so this is good to see.
Brilliant. Yeah. And when we take these profiles and work across teams, it's actually even more powerful than the sort of interaction we're having here, which I think is just more like an affirmative response to what you're seeing. Yeah. When you do this across teams, very quickly, some areas of challenge come up. And you can see those gaps, and you can see, okay, these two guys, they're likely to be having a challenge and a problem. Even before I've met them, I can be playing that back to the CEO or the manager and saying, look, this is what I see on your team dynamics. And they'll say, yeah, how do you know? Well, it's all there in the profiles when you start comparing teams together that way. So look, that's fabulous. Really good to unpack that. We're short on time. So
thank you, Pat.
Your book again is
The Unfair
Advantage. Wonderful. So that's coming out imminently. Definitely, let's get over to Amazon. It's going to come out on Kindle, paperback, hardback, and Audible. There's an audio as well, isn't there?
Yes, fabulous. You can. Yeah, you got it on everything. So go ahead and pre-order it and get it on the day of release.
Perfect. Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you so much. So insightful, so interesting. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there you have an insider's view of one of these signature impact consultations, where we understand all 6 archetypes and how they're impacting somebody's life, and how a shift and a change there could seriously help them to move significantly further forward in their chosen field. These archetype profiles will enable you to zero in on the specific character traits that you need to develop, or at least become aware of, in order to move forward without hindrances, without feeling stuck. This is where we diagnose and discover the hidden code to your unique personal strengths, the next step to your path to purpose and to profit. So I really do encourage you now to book your session with me online. teamme.com/impact gives you the details and the link. So go there now, book your session with me, and we will have an amazing time of unpacking who you really are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and defining a path to go forward, as well as giving you some of the tools there and then that you can pick up and utilize to create your signature impact.